So, hello then, welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spartan Knight, and in these podcasts, I love talking about things, movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I am reviewing The Life of Chuck. So, let's get into it, shall we? The Life of Chuck is the newest of the Stephen King film adaptations, and it is the newest film from Mike Flanagan as well. Mike Flanagan has been directing films and TV shows for quite a bit of time now. On Netflix, he directed the TV shows such as The Haunting of Bly Manor, The Haunting of Hill House, The Fall of the House of Usher, and Midnight Mass, which was particularly big during the pandemic. I don't know if he directed all the episodes of those TV shows of those TV shows that I've just mentioned, but he definitely directed some of the episodes of those TV shows I've just mentioned, and he was a driving force behind those TV shows. But it isn't just worked in TV, he's also directed films such as A Gerald's Game and Doctor Sleep, and I really liked Doctor Sleep. And Doctor Sleep was a Stephen King adaptation. You know, this is not the first time that Mike Flanagan has directed a Stephen King adaptation. This might be like the third or second, or I don't know, it might be the second time that he directed a Stephen King adaptation, but the point I'm making is it's not the first time he has adapted a Stephen King novel. He did so with Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining, and I actually thought the Doctor Sleep film was really good, and I wish we got a sequel to that, but we never did. Apparently we were very close to getting a sequel to that, but it just didn't happen. I don't think the film made enough money, but nevertheless, Stephen King has been having his novels adapted for quite a bit of time now. You might have heard of such Stephen King adaptations such as The Shawshank Redemption, The Shining, Misery, Carrie. There are loads that I'm just forgetting off the top of my head now, but there are loads of Stephen King adaptations out there, and this is the newest of them. Although I think we're about to get another one in the film The Walk, which is coming out in the next couple of weeks, in the next month, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there's a new Stephen King adaptation, it seems like every 3 months. There's a new Stephen King movie adaptation all the time. That's what it kind of feels like. And this is the newest of them, in The Life of Chuck. However, this is not what you would really think of when you think of a Stephen King adaptation. This is not in the lines, it's not in the same lines as The Shining, or Misery, or Carrie. It's not a horror movie. Usually when you think Stephen King, you think horror, but this, The Life of Chuck, is not a horror movie. It kind of falls in the same lines as The Shawshank Redemption, where, yeah, there's some horror parts to both of these films. There are horror sections to both The Shawshank Redemption and The Life of Chuck, but they're really films about life, and about the gift of life, and things like that. And that's essentially the gist of the film. You know, the Google plot synopsis goes as follows. From childhood to adulthood, Charles Chuck Krantz experiences the wonder of love, the heartbreak of loss, and the multitudes contained in all of this. And that's pretty much all you need to know about the film before seeing it. And you know what? I was looking forward to this film. I haven't loved everything I've seen from Mike Flanagan. Granted, I haven't seen all the stuff he's done, but what I have seen from him, some of which I really liked. Like, I watched some of his TV show, The Fall of the House of Usher, and some of it I really got into, but some of it I felt was a bit cliche. You know, you knew a character was going to die at the end of each one of those episodes, and it didn't really... Put it this way, I never finished that show, which pretty much tells you everything you need to know about how I felt about that show. And Midnight Mass, I was one of the few people who didn't really like that. I'd never really latched onto it. But I really liked Doctor Sleep, so I was hoping that this was going to be more in the lines of Doctor Sleep for me, in the way I really latched onto that movie and enjoyed watching it in the cinema. And I'd heard many great things about this film, because it premiered about a year ago now at Sundance Film Festival, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, people who got to watch it when it first premiered who have been raving about it. It came out in America about a month ago now, and people have been raving about it in America since it came out then, and I have been looking forward to it quite a bit. I did not know what to expect. I have not read the novel, the short story that this film is based on, but I have liked many Stephen King adaptations in the past. I think Mike Flanagan is an interesting filmmaker. I always look forward to see what he's going to do next and what he's involved with, because he doesn't just direct, he produces a lot of great movies as well and a lot of great TV shows. So I was hoping for something truly special from this movie, because that's what I was hearing it was going to be. And after coming back from the cinema, after watching this film, I hate to say it, but it wasn't for me. I don't think the film is terrible. I don't even really dislike it. It just wasn't for me, and that's pretty much my opinion of the film as a whole. I mean, I'm going to get into more detail on why it wasn't for me, but I was sat there watching the film, and I wanted to get into it so much more. But it never really grabbed me emotionally. And I left the cinema thinking, what was the point of that? I mean, I get the point of the film, or one of the points of the film, is that, everybody should enjoy the gift of life. But it just wasn't that fun. And I think if you're going to make a film about the gift of life, about how people should enjoy living and not get bogged down in the small stuff, not be distracted by what's to come, and just enjoy the moment that you're in, and just enjoy every day in its own way. If you're gonna make a film like that, you've got to make it fun, you've got to make it enjoyable. And in my opinion, this film was never really that enjoyable. There was one great dancing sequence in the film involving Tom Hiddleston, which I thought worked well, and I wanted the film to have more of that in there, more of that sort of enjoying life, but I didn't really get that. The film was more concerned with characters looking off into the distance and then delivering this small speech about the importance of living, the importance of life, the importance of doing what you want. And I'm just like, I get the point, but can we just not show that instead? That it's that famous old adage in film, show don't tell. But this film kind of felt like it did the opposite. It told you and didn't show you. It kept telling me why life was important, why we shouldn't take things for granted, but it didn't show me that, and I wish it showed me that more. There are parts when it showed me why life is important, but then I was also told about why it was important at the same time, and that really didn't work, man. I didn't latch onto any of the characters, none of the storylines I really found too engaging. I didn't find the film unengaging at the same time, but I didn't find it nearly as engaging as I wanted it to be. The film started off kind of interestingly. I was like, oh, I like the direction this film is taking. That's it's got quite a peculiar beginning. The film is kind of told backwards, where you start off with Act 3, and then you go into Act 2, and then you go into Act 1. Well, usually with a conventional narrative, you have Act 1, 2, and 3. Whilst with this movie, you have Act 3, 2, and 1. So Act 1 is technically the finale of the film, which isn't usually the case. And I kind of liked that method of storytelling, but I was hoping that was going to go somewhere, and for me it never really went anywhere. I got to Act 3, and Act 1, whatever you want to call it, I got to the final act of the film, and I was like, I found it the most unsatisfying act of all three acts. I found it to be the weakest act, and that act is meant to be the finale of the film, the part of the film which really hits you emotionally, but instead I was cringing a lot through the last acts. I keep wanting to say the third act, but it's not the third act, it's actually the first act, because of the way the film is structured. But I was cringing a lot more in the final act of the film than actually feeling emotionally engaged by what was going on. I didn't really get the point of some of the things happening in the final act. And I did get to the end of the film and I was thinking, what was I really meant to take from that? What is it really meant to leave me thinking about? And I kind of get what it was meant to leave me thinking about, but at the same time, I'm not really thinking about it, I didn't come out the cinema thinking, wow, that was a particularly thought-provoking and sophisticated film. It doesn't really feel like any of the messages, any of the stuff in this film that you're meant to take from this film is really anything we haven't already heard from before. in other movies and in other movies done better, if you follow my thinking. A lot of the messages of the film are messages I've already seen in movies before and done better, conveyed better in those movies before, in more subtle and emotionally impactful ways. In movies before, where they've had the same sort of message you get in this movie, it's all about showing and not telling, whilst in this one it's like, oh, here's why life is important. Here is why you should cherish your time. And I'm just like, okay, but why don't you show us that? Why don't you make the film more enjoyable instead of just dwelling on why I should be, I should be cherishing life more. I didn't really get that much from it. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad film. I'm not even really saying I disliked it. I thought it was a well-made movie. I thought Mike Flanagan did the best with his directing that you could with this script, because I did not think it was a particularly well-written script. And actually, Mike Flanagan did write the script for this film as well. So I'm sort of praising Mike Flanagan for this movie, but I'm also criticising because I didn't think it was particularly well-written, the script. It didn't hit me in the gut in the way I think the film wanted to hit me in the gut. It didn't grab me emotionally. I think a sort of film like this should. And it also felt the film got quite mushy at times. There were parts of the film where I was like, okay, we can move along from the emotional moment here. We can just... I feel it'd be better if the emotional moment wasn't so dwelled upon. I did feel the film was mushy, and again, I think Mike Flanagan did the best job directing this film that he could have. I think it's a beautifully shot film. There's certain frames in this movie which I was looking at and thinking, okay, I really love the colours going on in this scene. This feels like a sort of fairy tale brought to life, a sort of realistic fairy tale film, my thinking, brought to life, and I really liked that about it. The performances were all good. I will say, I wasn't blown away by any of the performances. I think Mark Hamill, who many people might know as Luke Skywalker, who seems to be having this resurgence with all these different types of roles now, I think he's brilliant in the film, and I wish we got to see more of him. I didn't really feel like I was watching Mark Hamill at all in the movie. Yeah, I thought Mark Hamill was the standout in this film. But the likes of Tom Hiddleston, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Karen Gillan, they're good in the film. These are actors that we've seen in plenty of movies in the past. These are actors which you'd probably consider Hollywood stars now. But the thing is, I wasn't that impressed by any of them. None of their performances really made me go, oh, I understand why that actor was cast in this role in this film. I didn't really get that from any of the actors. Tom Hiddleston, who I've seen be great in so many things, didn't really impress me with his performance. It's not a bad performance, but there's nothing about his performance which made me go, oh wow, I understood why they chose that actor, why they chose Tom Hiddleston to play this part, and they understand why Tom Hiddleston, who, had got his background from Shakespeare, chose to do this part. I didn't really get that. Same with Chiwetel Ejiofor. I felt like he could have been given more, and the same with Karen Gillan. Karen Gillan, I thought, was actually one of the weaker performances in the film, and I think Karen Gillan's a wonderful actress. I've enjoyed her ever since I saw her in Doctor Who, but I didn't love her in this film either. None of the performances really stood out to me. They're not bad performances. Okay, I take it back. One of the performances stood out to me, and that was Mark Hamill, and the rest of the performances aren't bad performances, but they're just not great performances. And I was expecting more from this film. I was expecting to get more from it. And maybe on a rewatch, maybe on a second watch, I would get a lot more from it, because I know where the film's going. I did start with the film thinking, okay, this is going to be this sort of reveal in the second act of the film. And then I got to the second act. I got to, the middle of the film, and I was like, okay, yeah, there isn't going to be a reveal. It's not the movie I was thinking it was going to be. So maybe if I watched it again, I wouldn't have those same expectations, and I'd be able to enjoy the film more. Maybe that's the case. But in the end, it just didn't impress me. I got to the end of the film, I was like, okay, that was what the film was about. Well, what am I really meant to take from that? I wasn't emotionally swept up by this film as I wanted to be. I just kind of felt like it was there whilst it was on. It wasn't a particularly bad watch, but it wasn't nearly as engaging or nearly as thought-provoking or nearly as... not even nearly. It just wasn't as it wasn't life affirming, which I know sounds like a bit of a weird criticism, but if you look at other Stephen King adaptations, like The Shawshank Redemption, which I've seen some people compare this film to, The Shawshank Redemption has so much going on to it. It's layered, and it is life affirming. You watch that film, and you are completely taken by it. There's a reason people think The Shawshank Redemption is one of the best films of all time. And I'm not saying I wanted I'm not saying I wanted the same feelings whilst watching The Life of Chuck as I do when I watch The Shawshank Redemption, but people have compared both recently, and I was hoping, because it is a Stephen King adaptation, I was hoping to be emotionally taken by this film in a way that I am by The Shawshank Redemption. I just wasn't, and for that reason, it did not impress me. It did not impress me because none of it hit me emotionally. It wasn't bad, and maybe on a rewatch I would like it more, but I'm in no rush to rewatch it, and I was just hoping for a lot more, particularly because this is a Stephen King adaptation, and particularly because it's written for the screen and directed by Mike Flanagan, who is an interesting filmmaker, and I'm still looking forward to see what he does next. But this film, it wasn't for me. I feel bad giving it a rating because not every film I'm going to watch is for me, and there are certain movies which feel like they are specifically made for me, and there are certain films like this from which don't feel like they're made for me, and that's totally fine. So I feel bad giving it a rating, but I give every film and TV show I review on this channel a rating, so I'm going to give it a rating nonetheless, and I am going to say that The Life of Chuck is a 5 out of 10. I'm giving it that rating because I didn't like the film, so I can't give it a 6 out of 10. And I have to at least enjoy the film. If I gave it a 6 out of 10, I did not enjoy the film. But I also didn't think it was a bad film. I can see why a lot of people would love this movie. And if you do love this film, that's great. I don't want to take that away from you. And again, maybe on a rewatch, I will. Maybe I watch this on streaming or on DVD within the next year, and I'm emotionally swept up by it. And if that is the case, I will do another video on this channel talking about my feelings on The Life of Chuck a year later or something like that. But as of now, as of August 2025, I feel more... Whenever I think of The Life of Chuck, I just feel more empty rather than emotionally taken by it. Whenever I think about it, I don't really have much to say about it. It didn't leave me with a lot to think about, and it was a lot of telling me and not showing me. And I felt if it did the opposite, it would have been far more effective and far more engaging. Still, it wasn't a bad movie, and it was beautiful to watch. Just not that emotionally engaging at the same time, though. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, The Life of Chuck is a 5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen The Life of Chuck, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts and many more videos coming very, very soon on this channel. That's what I said. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.